name's Lisa Murphy, for those of you who don't know me. I work for Stratford Regional Planning Commission, and I'm also the lead on the project that we're doing here in Milton, on one of the two projects we're doing here in Milton, and that's the watershed management plan, since there wasn't a watershed management plan before. And today we're here to hear about some ways that you can be smart homeowners and neighbors that can influence your neighbors, hopefully, into taking some steps that they can do on their own and that will help the lake. Because it doesn't take a large project to make an effect on the lake. It can take many small efforts by homeowners. So it always feels good to know that we're doing something positive to improve the lake. So I am joined here today by Bria
Arvidsson.
Sorry, who is the Director of Conservation. And she's going to help give you some guidance on that and be able to answer questions for you when we're done. Do you want questions throughout, or do you want them at the end?
I would say we can ask questions throughout, and then if we end up having a discussion about a specific topic, it's set up within the slides. It makes more sense for people who are watching it back. And then we can do further discussion at the end if you guys have more questions that I didn't even get to in the information.
Will you have this online?
It's currently online, and I'll share the slides with Lisa.
Okay, great.
Yep.
So you said it's on the town's YouTube?
It's on Milton's Town, our social media channel.
Okay.
Okay, I'm going to get started then. So I'm here to talk to you, as Lisa just said, about lake-friendly living and also transitioning from our summertime into winter time. And I am the Director of Programs at New Hampshire Lakes. I'm actually standing in for two of my other coworkers who just, perfect storm, had something else happen, and we're not able to be here with you today. So today, it's going to be a little lengthy presentation, maybe around an hour, hour and a half, depending on the questions you guys ask. We're going to go through an introduction to New Hampshire Lakes, though I see a lot of familiar faces, so we may not have to spend too much time on that. The threats to our lakes and also Milton Three Ponds, and then we'll talk about lake-friendly living from into summer to end of summer into winter. And with that, talking about polluted water runoff solutions and then also septic system maintenance when you get towards the end of the season. And as a consolation prize for being here, I'm going to do a mug raffle, a New Hampshire Lakes mug raffle. So if you want to take part in that, I'll do a drawing at the end of the day, or end of the morning, and you can fill that out, stick it on the back of the clipboard, and we'll do a drawing. So who's familiar with New Hampshire Lakes? Everyone. Okay, so you know our mission. You know our mission is to restore and preserve New Hampshire's lakes. How many lakes do you think that there are in New Hampshire? A lot. That's a good answer.
1,100.
1,100. You are very close. We say around 1,000. Around 1,000 lakes and ponds in New Hampshire. So our vision is where all of New Hampshire's lakes are clean and healthy, and caring for them is a way of life, doing business, and then also governing. And our lakes and ponds are an important part of New Hampshire's quality of life, our time on them, our daily life, our economy, our local businesses, and our natural heritage. So I'm talking specifically about Milton Three Ponds, but if you're here from another lake like Sunset, how is your lake important to you? Go ahead, throw something out.
It's important as an aquifer and as the recreation.
Something else? No one fishes? No one kayaks? No one uses the lake.
That's recreation. That's recreation.
Okay, so drinking water, yes. Recreation, so fishing, maybe you're accessing it from the shoreline, you're not actually on the water. Maybe you're in the water swimming, maybe you're boating, maybe you're diving. And that's because New Hampshire is home to some of the cleanest and healthiest lakes in the country. And we know that the health of our lakes, and as as you guys know, if you're going into a stormwater management plan, the health of our lakes are in danger. We have nearly 100 water bodies infested with invasive species. Looks like brittle naiad or European naiad was found in Northeast Pond in 2015. And we've also seen a downward trend in water quality in many of our lakes over the years. And a lot of this is because of that polluted runoff water. We also have changing weather patterns. So we have these long dry periods without rain. So we see a lot of dust. We see a lot of really loose soil, loose ground, maybe some bare soil because the grass is dying back. And then we get some really extreme storms. So all that loose gravel, sand, dust is getting washed with that heavy storm, that heavy flow into our rivers and then into our lakes. And good for you, water quality is monitored across Milton 3 ponds. This is just for Northeast Pond. Looks like the conditions are relatively stable throughout the ponds, but there is some high phosphorus coming into the lake from tributaries, but then also from the bottom sediments. And phosphorus is concerning because that is a primary food for cyanobacteria. Who knows about cyanobacteria? Okay, who doesn't know about cyanobacteria? This is a completely new term. Okay, cyanobacteria is like algae, and it grows because of the sun or other nutrients that it needs in the water, and it can create blooms like what you see here. So, there's a pointer. Can you see this pointer? Not really. Okay. So on all the way to your left, that is actually a bay in Winnipesaukee. It's Blackie Cove. And there's a lake, Kennesaca, that flows into that cove. The bloom was so bad in Kennesaca of cyanobacteria that it actually went downstream and into that cove, changing its color. That's concerning not just from an environmental standpoint, it's also concerning from a human health standpoint. So a lot of cyanobacteria can create toxins, and at high concentration or high volume of those cells of algae can release those toxins and cause liver damage, can be skin irritants, can neurotoxins, so your brain.
Definitely shouldn't have your dog in it.
Right. The middle picture is always astounding to me because someone letting it's such a stark difference, right? That cream golden retriever in the bright green algae. So have there been any cyanobacteria reports in Milton 3 ponds? From what we can find, there's been no reports made to DES about cyanobacteria blooms.
Ever this year?
As far as I could find in the reports that DES puts out, there's no reports that have been made.
We have had.
You've had
We've had 2.
2, okay. And which basin was it in?
Northeast Pond and the river.
Northeast?
Right in
Okay.
front of her cottage.
Okay.
Suspicious.
Eddie's there.
Jen's fault.
It's all down the side. When it comes in, we've had it all down the side, the lower side
Okay.
of Northeast Pond. And then Eddie's, and then there's also been some in the river.
Okay. And coming from the river, or is it in a space where there's no tributary?
Well, the river flows from Northeast Pond all the way through to the other 2 ponds.
Okay.
So,
So yeah, maybe from the
the channel, they call it, or the river. But.
So you're talking just this year for cyanobacteria reports, or is this historically or what?
So when I looked it up, and I guess I didn't do a thorough enough job.
Well, these might not were these reported?
Yep, things have been reported for several years now. Only twice was it at a level that one was an alert and one, I always get the terminology,
okay.
there's a warning and an alert.
Alright.
One was the high one, and one was the lower one. But it has been, like this summer, I saw some and I brought it and Dr. Haney tested it, who's the cyanobacteria guy at UNH. And it definitely had the Dolichospermum. Dolichospermum, yeah. So it was there, but it wasn't, it dissipated real quick, it wasn't a huge amount. Luckily, they seem to dissipate like within a day usually, or a couple days. But yeah, it's definitely concerning because, it can be toxic to pets and, cause harm to people, so.
Yeah, the Sunrise, which is right over the hill here, we had a very slight outbreak just when we had that heat wave, and they dissipate within hours or within 8 hours and they were gone. That's the only one, knock on wood, we had this year. And last year we had warnings, not advisory. So I don't know, weather, I guess, has something to do with it.
That's probably corresponded with
Yeah,
that same day.
Weather does have a lot to do with it. And so, before I share this with Lisa, I'll correct that for this year, 2024.
Identification's a problem. I know we're kind of in a little cove, but we get, every year we'll get some of that visible stuff. And
Yep.
Is it surface pollen blowing down and collecting there, or what is it?
Yep. It could be pollen, it could, depending on the time of year, it could be pollen, spring especially, or early summer. Pine pollen looks really similar to cyanobacteria blooms. There's also, wind has a huge factor in how cyanobacteria blooms. It's not just the cyanobacteria changing its buoyancy, moving up and down in the water column, blooming in one spot. Wind can also push it to certain locations. So if there's a prevalent wind going to maybe the eddy that Jen just talked about, maybe that is a spot where wind kind of pushes or the water flows well right there and gets caught.
Are all of the blue-green algae toxic?
No, not all blue-green algae are toxic, not all cyanobacteria. And so,
The one with the dog, blue-green algae around him, but perhaps not toxic.
may not have been toxic, may have been a good situation where it didn't get sick.
Yeah.
Yeah, so it's hard to know.
He's dead now.
Oh, sketchy.
I mean, it's really, really dangerous to dogs, so.
Yep, it can be really dangerous. It can also be not dangerous. So the state's been putting out, do your own risk assessment. So if you see a bloom and if you don't know what it is, or if your lake is newer to blooms, or if you have different species that bloom throughout the year, maybe it's best not to go in, or use your own risk assessment to be like, I'm not gonna go here, but I might go down maybe upstream in the lake, because it flows well enough.
Thank you.
Any other questions? So up here, I just have different examples of what cyanobacteria could look like, whether it's toxic or not. So it's pretty versatile in the way that it looks. But there's always consistently that kind of bright blue-green look to it. So if we simplify down, what creates cyanobacteria blooms? There are things that we cannot control at the local level. So we have your light, we have the heat from the hot temperatures of the air, and then we have nutrients like phosphorus and nitrogen, and those are things that we can control. And that creates cyanobacteria bloom. So then let's look a little further into what these things are that we can control. And that's because the most irrational thing that we can do is pretend like our lakes will take care of themselves. This is one of my favorite photos to share. This is one of our board members at New Hampshire Lakes, just out on her lake, taking it in. So in 2019, we saw our lakes were declining in health. We saw people looking for ways to get engaged on their property, protect their lake. And we're like, okay, Lake Smart program. It's a lake-friendly living program. We put together to teach people like you, other homeowners, people online, how to protect the lake that they love. With the goal of educating them and equipping them and you with the knowledge to make informed and lake-friendly choices on their property. So what does the Lake Smart program look at? Who's heard of the Lake Smart program? Okay, a couple of you. So it's a lake-friendly living program, meaning that we come to your property or we talk with you about your property and your lifestyle. And we look at your driveway, parking areas and footpaths, so areas of hard surfaces. We look at your wastewater treatment system. We don't actually look at it, we talk about it. And we say, hey, do you know what kind of system you have? Do you know where it is on your property? When was the last time you had someone come take a look at it? We also talk about your roof runoff and the drip lines around your house. Maybe you don't have a gutter and rain just falls off your roof into a specific spot. We walk through your gardens, your yard, your recreational areas and talk to you about how you use them. Maybe you have chickens, maybe you have goats or cows. We've added this year because a lot more people have taken on chickens. And then we also, like I said, talk about your lake-friendly habits. So maybe it's not just at your property. Maybe it's you walking your dog on the road and picking up after it. Maybe it's out on the water and boating in a way that's lake-friendly.
I'm actually on the Maine side. Do you know if Maine has a similar program?
They
as
do.
this?
They do. They had this program before we did. We saw, and they have a little different version of it. But we kind of adopted that lake smart, lake friendly living idea and concept and have made it our own.
Wayne, do you have info on that?
Yeah, I can share that. It's through Maine Lakes. So it's basically our sister organization for Maine. So if you go to Google and you type in Maine Lakes, Lake Smart, that will pop up.
Okay, great, thanks.
So in the Lake Smart program, our motto for runoff water is to slow it down, cool it off, and soak it up. If there's anything that you remember from lake-friendly living, remember this. When we're out on your property, we also look at woody plants. As a whole, having woody plants like trees or shrubs, maybe they're blueberry bushes, maybe it's button bush, having those are extremely important for the health of your property, especially if you live on the lake. How many gallons of water do you think a tree takes up in a day, on average? Just a guess, anything, throw it out there. 50. Wow. You have ESP, yes. It's 50 gallons a day. That's kind of insane, right? So if you think about an acre of land, or maybe it's an acre of your property on the water, and we receive on average about 4 feet of rain a year. That's a lot of rain. Maybe it's not happening right now, but we get these big storms like in June, and you can see how it might be 4 feet of rain. How much water do you think that is on that 1 acre of property with that much rain? A lot. Some fast math here.
I can
feel it.
6 times.
It's 1 million gallons of water, give or take. 1 million gallons of water. So how many trees, and did you know you were going to get a math lesson? How many trees do you think you need to have on your property to take up that amount of water?
30.
Oh, you're very close. It's about 50. 50 trees. It's about 50 trees.
Plant.
For how big a lot?
Say that again?
50 trees per acre.
To take up that amount of water. I mean, the math is not 100% sound, but in general, that's not a lot of trees to have on an acre of land. So 1 tree can mean a lot. Okay, so moving on to the next section of the presentation. Who's closing up their camp or a camp or transitioning their home from the summer to the winter? No one. Okay.
Year-round.
Even if you're year-round, you're still maybe doing some transitions for your yard, getting ready for winter, maybe so that your arborvitae doesn't get smushed by the snow, something like that. So it can kind of feel like crunch time. There's so much to do. It's a little time. I know that I definitely go through 3 phases of despair, where winter is coming. I don't want to lose the summer. I love fall, but winter is here. And then it just feels like everything. There's just so much to do. Maybe I want to cover the roses so they don't get frost burn. And maybe I want to put teepees over some of the other bushes that I have, or I need to cover the pool. And I just need to remember to calm down, take some time, and know that there's always next year to be able to plan over the winter for the things that I want to do in the summer. So as you're walking around your property, closing down your camp for the summer, maybe you're cleaning up the sides of your driveway. Maybe you've seen some leaf fall happen and it's getting all over your parking area. Or you're walking around those footpaths on your property, and it's then, as you're going from one place to another, to be able to take time and say, oh, I see some erosion happening, or oh, I didn't realize how slippery this slope was because the gravel is so loose. And so these areas, you might see exposed roots from you trampling maybe that pathway over and over again throughout the summer. Maybe you see, like I said, erosion. So this picture here a little hard to see, but there's a pretty deep channeling happening along the left-hand side of that driveway. It's because it's so steep, they just had it regraded, but they didn't take into account that regrading it sends more water off to that side. And also keep an eye out for pooling water. It means that that area is going to become more compressed over time because there's water pooling there, pressing down that soil, filling in all the holes with additional sand or maybe smaller particles. And then there's also these things called desire paths. So maybe the footpath that you have to get from your house to the lake is not as convenient as you want it to be. And so you've just created a desire path where it brings you there quicker, and maybe it's time to make that path more defined. Maybe that becomes your primary path instead of your other footpath. So some solutions to these. So say you have a lot of runoff water coming down your driveway. Maybe you need to put in an infiltration trench or steps for your walkway. Maybe it's time to add some woody vegetation. You're noticing some really loose gravel, and putting in some woody vegetation has some stronger roots. They're able to hold together the ground a little bit better. Maybe you add in some pervious pavers or grassy pavers. So the picture that you see in the background is actually a bunch of grassy pavers that have been planted or placed and allowed to grow in. So that grass is there actually holding together the gravel with its roots and also taking up water and shading some of that paver, so any water that hits is also not harming it as much as it could. And maybe you just don't have an option to put in an infiltration trench for water to go in. Maybe you need water bars. Maybe you don't plow in the winter, and so you can put up a water bar like the picture here, and that helps divert water off your driveway into an area where it can slow down and soak up.
What is that made out of?
Rubber.
It's a old conveyor belt, spiked between 2x4s. So instead of the ditch like a hoop-de-doo in a water bar, that can be flat with the surface. You just drive over it with your wheels. So it physically catches the water, runs it to one side.
Yep, so it is installed too, so it does go slightly down to the ground, so that's why you wouldn't necessarily want to put it in a driveway that you plow, because the plow is just gonna take that out and you'll get an angry call from your plow driver. Any other questions?
And that's rubber, that yellow.
Yeah, conveyor belt, about 10 or 12 inches from sawmills or gravel operations or something. You usually have old stuff laying around, so 10 to 12 inches wide. And they say you spike the 2x4s on the bottom and put that in the actual ground, and then you've got like 4 or 5 inches sticking up above the ground, and you just drive right over it because it's flexible.
So,
There's a guy that makes those.
so right here is kind of, you can actually see the wood, the 2x4 come out here. And then underneath here, this had been dug out, so to install the rubber raiser or the water bar, and then filled in with crushed stone to help with drainage around it.
Thank you.
So other things to do, I said infiltration steps. This is actually two different options. So on your left, those are true infiltration steps that actually one of our board members made for his property. He noticed some runoff coming from his parking area roof, like his garage roof, and said, I'm gonna put in some steps here. Those steps are filled with crushed stone or smaller stone that allow the water to flow over top of it and into it and drain in and soak into the ground instead of down a steep slope and possibly eroding away the soil. And then on your right is actually someone, he said, that's not enough for me. So what he ended up doing was he dug this out and he created little mini infiltration trenches in between each of those coupled pavers. So water doesn't even get down here at this point because of the way that he put the drainage in, but each one flows off to the side and into a larger trench along the side of his walkway.
Maria, I'm really glad you have this, the infiltration steps on the left. I built those at my house, several years ago. Very easy to build. Does a great job, and it's something that I just wish every homeowner would do it around the lake, because it's too easy to just have that straight path going to the lake. And here's a way to still have that.
So DES actually has some really great DIY sheets online that are Soak Up the Rain program,
That's how I
and
got it.
infiltration steps are one of those DIY. Sure.
Yeah, about 10 years ago, TPPA, we went and put in infiltration stairs at the town beach in Milton on either side of the pavilion.
And with a town beach like that, it helps direct traffic too.
Right.
So you get less people walking in more places and down the slope, eroding away, or breaking up any of the root systems that are there. Okay, so you want to maintain your roof runoff and your drip lines around your house. I don't know where my picture is, but imagine there's a drip line there for you. I actually had a really great photo of a gutter coming down and washing out the lawn where that downspout came. Because of the power from that downspout, it actually took, over the summer, has dug out a nice hole and created a place where it to puddle, but then also the grass had become kind of trodden from that amount of rain and the flow. And so that's something that you want to notice as you're walking around. Maybe you're cleaning out your gutters, maybe you're cleaning up your lawn, pulling away leaves from your property, and that's something that you might notice.
So is the problem the rainwater or the runoff cause coming out of the gutter?
Both. So the problem starts with the way that the downspout is flowing.
Okay.
So I'm not saying a gutter is bad. I'm saying how there's a way to have a downspout and make it so that the water's not flowing over top of your yard, but able to slow down and soak in. So
I got a question from a neighbor. He put gutters on and he puts the runoff right into the lake. He says it's straight rainwater, it should be clean, and it goes into the lake without causing erosion.
So it depends on the roof type. Typically, we have asphalt or metal roofs.
Yeah.
There's also, even with a metal roof, you can get pine needles caught up there. There's dirt over time, deposition from the air. I don't think that people realize that there's particles in the air that will settle over time, especially when we have dry seasons like this with all the dust. We have a lot of dirt roads around our lakes, and that settles on our roofs too. So
rainwater's not clean. We think it's pristine and clean. It's not. Especially when
it still has stuff in it. It is cleaner than if you have like the muddy water,
Yeah.
sure. But it does still have particles in it, and it is best to have it soak into the ground
Yep.
and filter through the ground into the lake.
Especially, the velocity, the speed that's coming out of there is, typically going to cause some ponding. And that's where like a dry well or something there is really helpful. But a
It's
dry
like-
well is not difficult to build. And Bria mentioned DES. Their homeowners, stormwater.
Homeowner's Guide to Stormwater Management.
Thank you. Is excellent because it will give you step by step what to do and estimate. It'll tell you how much material you need. It is so simple to follow and they have all of these in there.
Yep, that's a great material, a great booklet to share. I think some people get a little overwhelmed by it, by the size, but there is so much great information in there, and even if you just were to go to Google and type in the thing that you think you want to do, that might pop up for DES. So, like Lisa said, you could create a dry well for your gutter system, or somewhere for the water to settle in and slow down and then seep into the ground. You could also do a rain chain or into a rain barrel, or maybe the gutter goes straight into the rain barrel. That's not necessarily going to help you when you're thinking about transitioning from summer into winter. So you do need to remove that rain barrel or prevent that rain barrel from getting damaged from winter freezing. So it's really thinking about, okay, I have this downspout, I have this gutter. Where can I send this gutter water when it rains after I've removed my rain barrel, where it's not going to erode away my yard? Maybe that's off into the woods. Maybe it's getting one of those like bendable corrugated hoses that may attach to your gutter or your downspout. and you send it off into the woods somewhere. You can also place vegetation, so plants are always good, they're never a bad thing.
So the goal is kind of just to have it run off through the soil so it kind of cleanses it before it reaches the lake.
You want it to soak into the ground. You don't want it to, flowing over top of the ground is what we're trying to avoid. And then another option for you is to leave the leaves. So the leaves actually around your house can actually create a natural mulch, a natural soil, and that organic material can actually soak up water better and easier than straight rock or sand. So when you're out in your yard, so we've moved away from your roof runoff and drip lines, and we're moving into your yard, your garden area, maybe some recreational spaces. You're cleaning up the leaves. Maybe you're mowing the lawn for the last time. And you notice, hey, we really used that fire pit pretty well. And not just, the ground is not just burned away from the heat, but also because maybe the kids or the grandkids were out there roasting marshmallows a lot. And also, I love this picture because you can actually see in the background, there's a walking path here, but the desire was to go this way instead. And it allows you to just, if you can take a moment when you're standing back there as you're doing your yard work to say, oh, hey, this is how I use my property. So some solutions to that, you can actually, when you're mowing your lawn, you can actually mulch leaves into the ground or into the grass. That'll help. Instead of fertilizing again, you can leave the mulch there, and that will naturally fertilize your lawn. And also it will feed back into the grass and help the grass regrow in areas that you've trodden on. You can also aerate your lawn in the fall. That helps it rejuvenate in a way. And then another thing, kind of going back to the Elmo on fire photo, is that you don't have to do it all now. It's okay if you've got projects that you want to work on or think about. So what's a really great option for you is to take pictures of these areas. Maybe it's taking pictures like this to be like, yeah, I've got to work on that, but how do I fix that? What do I want to do? Where do I get the materials? And take your time to say, okay, I want to define a pathway here. Okay, I know I like my fire pit area, but maybe I need to put some crushed stone around it so that the grass doesn't keep getting burned or we don't keep creating mud areas. Maybe it's, hey, I have a lot of lawn and I don't use it all. So maybe I want to put in some native gardens to introduce more native habitat, or just adding color to your yard instead of just the green. Any questions? Thoughts? Okay. So we move into shoreline and water access. So a little overview, the protected shoreland area is regulated 250 feet within a public water. And that shoreline vegetation or shoreland vegetation, it protects your property from wakes, waves, and wind. So you have incoming influence from the lake because it's open and it's water, so wind blows off of that really easily. And then it also, that vegetation protects the lake from you, your property, from the warm weather and the warm sun. Having vegetation actually cools down the air. And it also helps reduce polluted runoff water. This is just a good example of what a shoreland area could look like that matches this person's aesthetic. Not everyone's aesthetic is going to be like this. Some people want to have that lawn on the front yard. Some people want to have shorter gardens. They want to have just blueberry bushes everywhere. And the reason why I bring this one up is because it matches that drawing so well, but then also shows you how they've put in drainage areas to make sure that they're not going to be impacting the lake by having the access that they want. So they've put in rock alongside their infiltration steps. They've also defined their pathway with, it looks like, wood slats. That's just how they feel that they want their property.
Another thing is, for something like that, if you don't want all those steps do a couple steps and then, some area that's, just has gravel and then maybe another landing, and do it that way. Because I might not want to walk up all of those stairs.
Sure.
You still have to get from here to there.
So maybe instead of the stairs, you're doing a winding pathway and it comes up here and it goes around these trees and up over here. So that winding pathway reduces the slope down, so it's not as much of a walk up for you. But then also, it's not creating a direct path for the water to flow into the lake. So then, what is a lake-friendly shoreline? It's not just that wooded lot that we just saw. It's protective, yet it provides enjoyment to you. You maintain a view shed. So when I say view shed, we go back to this photo, and we see that maybe some of these red pines have been limbed up a little bit, so they can still see out their windows. Some of these bushes have been cut, so they still have that view out to the lake.
I think that's the same dog.
I think it's actually a different dog.
Took a bath.
So this was taken last year. We always love to pose the dogs in the photos because everyone loves it. So another thing that you can do is, that is lake friendly, is having native, woody, and densely rooted plants. So there's a lot to unpack there. So native versus invasive. I'd rather you have invasive plants than none. But if you can gear your property towards native plants, it's going to encourage more native fauna. And then woody plants, meaning shrubs, meaning trees, those have more they can last longer, they can withstand more damage, they can withstand more impact from, say, wind or snowpack. And then you have those dense rooting plants. So maybe that's irises, maybe that's hostas. Those do really well and help hold all of that soil and ground together. And so high bush and low bush blueberry are two also other really good examples. And also fun examples because you can eat the berries. And then everyone always asks about beaches. Beaches can be lake friendly. It's just about how those beaches are contained. It's not necessarily adding more sand, or if you feel that you have to add more sand, it's making sure that sand does not get into the lake. So maybe that's a perched beach. Maybe your beach is naturalized a little bit, so there's some grass or some sedges that are growing through that are low growing, but holding that sand together.
Can you explain what a perched beach is?
Yes, so a perched beach is essentially there's a retaining wall that holds in the sand, and it's lifted up, so it's flattened, not sloped, so it reduces how the water flows off the sand or off the beach. So by creating that flat terrace, just like the infiltration steps, just like when we're saying maybe terraced gardens, you're creating a flat area for the water to slow down and soak up. So when maybe you're putting your dock away, maybe you pull your dock out for the winter, it's then that you can notice well-loved and damaged areas 15 to 50 feet from the shoreline. Not everyone's going to have that 50-foot vegetated buffer, right? That's back in that picture of the shoreline protection area. Some people only have that 15 feet, but that 15 feet is extremely important. And so I have this picture up here just to show damage to what it could look like as damage to the shoreline. They have an access point right here. That's gravel that goes right down into the lake. They have a picnic table here, but then they've chopped down and removed all of the native vegetation. There's just grass. There's erosion happening over here because there's nothing to hold those stones, that ground together. And that's something to notice. That's something to take a picture of and think about, okay, I know I want my aesthetic to be this. I want my yard to look like this. I want my access to look like this. How do I make it more friendly for the lake while protecting my shoreline? So we just talked about tiered gardens. This is another really great example. So you can't see the lake here in this photo, but you can see the beach. The lake is literally right here. So they've flattened their beach. If you go back to the shoreline, it's that beach conversation we just had. They've also tiered their gardens because they have such a steep slope down to the lake that they were struggling with how much water was getting from their house to the lake. And they knew that, hey, I want grassy areas, I like that green lawn look, but I also don't want to impact the lake by having just straight lawn. So they've flattened out the lawn, they can still access with their mower, and then they've bordered all of that lawn with vegetation. And that, a lot of it's hostas, so that densely rooting plant. There's some other perennials in there. There's some daylilies, that's another densely rooting plant. Some juniper as well. So I'm giving this recommendation again. There can be a lot of projects when you start to look at your shoreline and maybe you start to see undercutting from the waves, or you're seeing other issues. It doesn't all have to happen now. Take pictures. Think about how you could improve it, or who you can talk to. Maybe your neighbor has just done a lot of work with a contractor and you want to pick the neighbor's brain on like what that conversation was like, or why they decided to go the way that they did. So it's taking pictures to help you define your access. So instead of having just an access point, we just talked about the community beach at the beginning, right? Where you put in 2 sets of infiltration steps to guide access down to the beach. Same idea. Designated use areas. So saying, okay, I know I want this area on the shoreline to be, this is gonna be where I put my dock in the winter. This is my dock storage. This area is gonna get compressed. It's gonna have crushed stone underneath it to make sure that the dock is staying aerated, or there's airflow underneath the dock and it's not getting moldy. Maybe it's planning out your vegetated shoreline buffer as well. Questions?
Do you have any examples of like boat launches? Because they're.
I did try to find some.
I don't know what a good one looks like. Usually they're just.
There's so many ways to do a boat launch.
So there's options.
There's definitely options. And I would say you see a lot of impact on boat launches from when boats are being pulled out and all of that water is pouring out of the trailer, maybe pouring out. You see a lot of damage at the boat access specifically. But then you also see maybe it's runoff from the road that you access the launch.
Or asphalt.
Maybe it's asphalt, maybe it's graded in a way, maybe that needs, so some launches, they're bigger and they don't have as many small boats that access, but some trailers have really small tires. So doing something like that water bar or a rubber racer wouldn't work as well because they're gonna be scraping bottom or even hitting their skeg from their motor. So it's really about the boat launch and how it's used.
And you need a wetlands permit for that, so.
Well, yes, we haven't talked about permitting at all.
Start digging.
So another thing that you can do in the winter, say, okay, you've gotten to the end of looking through your property, you're closing up your camp, or you're like, yes, I feel good about where I'm at. You've taken photos of maybe your yard area or other parts of the shoreline, and you're like, okay, I know I need to find plants. This is a really great resource for you. Native Plant Trust has this plant finder where you can type in anything that you want. So say it needs to be drought tolerant. Say you want to make sure it has purple blooms because you only do purple flowers. And maybe it needs to be something that blooms in the fall or the summer. You can put all that information in and it'll pop out some native plants for you. It doesn't tell you where to find them, but at least tells you, hey, you could choose from these things. And then you can take that conversation to a nursery or a plant-friendly friend, and they might be able to tell you where to find that. And then another great option, especially over the winter, is the New Hampshire State Forest Nursery. So they open for 2025 in December, or every year they open December through May. And they sell out pretty quickly, but they sell bare root plants. So the plants, I think, at maximum might be $3 a piece. So if you're really looking you're okay growing plants from small growth, and you're looking to save on cost, that's a really great option for you. And they sell anything, mostly it's woody plants. So trees, saplings, bushes, so like button bush is another great option. And then we get into septic. So you guys have any other questions about runoff, roof runoff, driveway, home, property. Okay, all right, septic systems. I was gonna rhyme, but then I thought maybe I shouldn't. So maintaining your septic system is important to protect your investment and also investment in your septic system, because they're expensive. Protecting your property value, because if you have a failing septic, it takes out your property value. And also can impact the water quality of your lake, and then thusly reducing your property value as well. And then also you want to maintain your septic system to preserve the water quality, especially of Milton 3 ponds. So some do's and don'ts of septic systems and maintaining your septic system. So do not, we'll start with the negative and then go to a positive. Don't plant woody vegetation, so shrubs, trees, on or around your leach field. Kind of give your leach field a buffer of maybe 10 to 15 feet, even more with large trees. Just because those root systems can come into your leach field or even wherever you have any part of your septic system. And maybe it's cracking the tank, maybe it's intruding into the pipe system and making your system not work as it should. Don't park heavy things on top of your leach field. It's not meant to withstand those heavy things unless it's specifically built for it. I've only seen one of them where they actually had a leach field underneath their driveway and parking area. And they were like, no, it's built for it. So heavy equipment, even snowbanks, snow can get really heavy. And that can also damage, from a weight perspective, your leach field. It can also, all that runoff, the melt that happens with that snow storage can also overload your system. Also, don't pour chemicals, paint, fat, oils, anything that's not your waste down your septic system, down your drains, because it impacts its ability to do its job. And this includes septic additives. So a lot of those additives are like, oh no, it's septic safe. They actually can harm the natural biota. There is actual organisms in your septic system helping break down your waste over time. That's how they manage the nutrients that are in the water, in the system itself. And adding those septic additives can actually harm that biota, those bacteria.
So even bleach in your laundry?
I think it's to be used. That's a great question. I've never had anyone say that.
I think the system is big enough, the volume is big enough
I mean,
to take care of those weekly pulses and things, yeah.
right. So I think this is more about like using bleach to manage your system. Don't use bleach in your system. It's not going to help break down things more. If you're using bleach in your laundry, that's a minuscule amount of bleach. It's maybe a cup of bleach. That's not going to be doing the damage that we're talking about here.
Do you have an actual example of a septic additive? Like Rid-X or something like that?
Rid-X is one of them, sure. Anything that says like helps the health of your system, it's like a thicker liquid.
My sister-in-law swears by Rid-X. She says that never had a problem, but it's interesting. You say don't use it.
Yeah, I would have her talk to the person who does her pump out, for her to see what they say. But it's
Because that's what I was saying back to her was, I thought that sort of kills the natural bacteria that you need to have in the
yeah, and that's what it does. For your system to actually work as it's supposed to, it's meant to have those bacteria breaking material down. When you have that additive, I guess that's really more commonly used. So say if you're not pumping out as often and you're trying to flush the system, but it's not a way to save money, I guess is my point, is that you're going to end up needing to pump anyway, and in the long run, you might end up damaging your system.
All right, thanks.
And then, like I said, don't flush anything other than toilet paper and your waste. So some do's on the positive side of things. Practice water conservation. So low flow fixtures, space out your laundry, so you're not doing all the loads in one day. You wanna put compost and food scraps into, or compost your food scraps instead of putting them down your garbage disposal. That organic material is just not meant to, your system's not meant to break that down. And then,
I disagree.
Well, I was always told you could not have a garbage disposal if you had a septic system.
right, yes, that's, but you beg to differ.
I won't get into it, but I kind of disagree. But my septic supplier said he resisted because I asked him about 30 times, can I put in a garbage disposal? No, John, no, no. Then he says, okay, if you do use it, don't put any bones, don't put corn down there, all that. Animal bones are the worst thing because they never decompose.
Right.
So vegetables, that's okay.
I think it depends on the amount of food waste that
Yeah,
you have.
yeah.
So someone who is,
Greasy food, but vegetables, don't put celery down there. That's what
vegetables
people-
but not celery, noted.
And not corn.
Not vegetables at all.
Oh, yeah.
Compost.
Aye.
So if you think about the amount of food waste that we actually produce, if you keep a compost and see how much food waste that you produce, it's actually more than your septic system really can handle. Typically, I'm not saying that's for everyone.
Weeds,
So-
vegetables,
So then maybe your
everything.
vegetable waste is high. So there's a lot, food waste is,
I get
let's
it.
talk more.
Yeah, we'll talk.
If you look on some septic designs, they say right on them, no, don't use with a,
All right.
yeah,
That's-
disposal.
That is the way that I've always heard and understood it, but the more literature that I read now, it says, you know, limit your use of the garbage disposal. So I wish the information would say eliminate, but even some of the material here from EPA says limit your use of a garbage disposal instead of don't use it.
I mean, I think it goes back to what you use as a home
Yeah.
or household, and how much material you're producing and how much you're putting down the drain. Definitely composting is the better way to go about it, or disposing of it in your trash. So another thing that you can do is plant non-woody or shallow-rooted plants on your leach field. So instead of just having an open lawn or grass, you also can plant maybe some gardens, some areas to sit or be, or maybe it's putting a nice planter over top of the access port for your tank so that you don't have to dig it out and find it. So when closing up camp or closing down for the summer, it can kind of be out of sight, out of mind, because it's underground. What you can do when you're out on your property, cleaning up the yard, maybe it's pruning back plants, maybe it's planting additional plants. Walk over your leach field before leaving or before we get snow. Check for soggy areas. Remove any woody vegetation. Maybe you're just walking by, you can pull out a sapling pretty easily and chuck it into the woods. And funky smells are another really big identifier of a leaking or a failing septic. And if you really want that peace of mind, consider getting onto an inspection schedule. Every 3 to 5 years, work with a company to come out, do an inspection, make sure that your system is doing what it's supposed to do and doesn't have anything happening to it that's going to cause problems down the road, especially if you're leaving for the summer. Another thing that you can do is plan your winter snow storage. So we talked about this already with the snow on top of your leach field, but that weight of the snow melt can damage your leach field and push your septic system towards failure sooner. And this is just a nice built in 3 ponds. You can be a lake-friendly living community. I think a lot of you are already lake-friendly. And I say that because community-based action, we find that that works. In the Lake Smart program, our 5 years or 6 years now, of having this Lake Smart, Lake Friendly Living program, people working together gets more things done, gets more people engaged and more passionate about living in a lake-friendly way. It also helps reduce costs in some ways. So maybe it's cost sharing a project. Maybe you know that, okay, you have 100 feet of shoreline, your neighbor has 100 feet of shoreline, you need to plant that out because it's pretty bare or it doesn't have enough vegetation in it. Maybe it's going in to a nursery and saying, hey, you have an end of season sale, can we buy this many plants, will you give us an additional discount? It's not only supporting that local nursery, but it's also maybe helping you get a discount and cut your cost, you and your neighbor. It's also, like I just said, building relationships with your local businesses, supporting your local economy. The more you support them, the better that you're all gonna do. And then also connecting with your municipality. So a lot of them are often community members too. And they're always, everyone's looking for a way to engage in one way or another. And your municipality often has an easier route to getting funding for projects in the town. Not all the time, but it can be easier than private funding sources. Also, celebrating achievements as a community. So saying if a series of property owners or maybe it's a community beach that did a good thing, sharing that achievement, celebrating it, and saying, look at, it creates an attractant. It makes people want to be engaged because it's such a positive thing. So this is an example. So Province Lake, not too far away from here in Wakefield. Acton Wakefield Watershed Alliance, AWA, and Province Lake, they've been running a septic replacement cost sharing program the last couple of years. So AWA applies to the Section 319 grant fund each year and have received it each year. And what they've done is they've dispersed it to the community via sub-grants. So each homeowner can receive up to $5,000 to help them replace their septic system. That's maybe a third of what a septic system might cost, depending on where you are on the lake, but it's more than nothing.
Based on income, based on what? Based on?
I'm not sure of the specific application, but I'm sure that they would be willing to share if you reached out to them.
Replaced my septic.
And then, so like I said, in 5 years, we've seen neighbors come together to build a culture around lake-friendly living, to a point where our Lake Smart program has become community-oriented. We've created this opportunity for lake associations, for lake-oriented groups, maybe it's an HOA, to join the lake as a Lake Smart community and help push out their lake-friendly living wants and needs to their community and have us come out and do property tours with them. And you can also join our community at New Hampshire Lakes. And then I have a request. I know there's not very many of you. But do you mind if I take a picture so that we can share it?
When it's all gathered in at one spot.
Yeah, I mean, if you guys are up for moving, that sounds good to me. Anything, right in the middle, maybe cluster in. I'm gonna turn on the light if that's okay. And you don't have to be in the photo. There's no pressure to be in the photo if you don't want to be.
Now I'm in the front row. For the picture.
I like it better when you were back there.
Okay, I'll give a side, Lisa.
Okay.
Or how about I get behind Lisa and we'll fill up the space?
All right, say Milton Three Ponds. Thank you. And that was my last slide. And if there was something I didn't touch on, or if there's something more that you have questions about, I'm happy to, let's talk.
That DES grant, what would be, it's for lake owners only?
No.
No, it's for anybody in the community.
Yep.
Just gonna ask.
Thank you. I do want to mention, we have more people here than what I see on the sign-in sheet. We can use the attendance here as in-kind match, so please, even if you don't want to put your name down, put somebody else. It's just, we need the body, we need to count the body, so, yes.
$35
Yeah.
an hour.
The volunteer
Now we have
rate
times
is
whatever.
$35
So
an hour.
this is a side issue. There's no answer for this. But our building inspector brought to our attention the issue of Airbnbs and people renting out cottages and things. And it's fine when it goes to one or two people, traditionally we're used to.
Yeah.
But unfortunately, sometimes they'll rent out to a family, and they'll invite their brothers and sisters in. And again, it becomes a policing issue, an ambulance issue. And you now get a system that's designed for a single-family home that's serving 20 individuals over a weekend. And this continues every weekend. So towns are becoming aware of this. We don't know what to do because we really don't know if we need action or not. It's staff and there's no permit required. It's just, but usually the building inspector in the town is kind of catching winds of this stuff. And we think that in the future, there may be some sort of a notice system or something that's going on instead of the open west it is right now.
It's really tough, yeah, because, you know, you are infringing on people's right to use the property the way they want to.
They can't use the way they want.
But I'm saying, it's a touchy situation, because we do know that that's happening, and we do know the impact that it's bringing, so.
So what you can do is encourage, so the owner of the Airbnb or Verbo or whatever it is, to have, so there's typically a binder that the visitors need to use. You can have that as, ask them to have that as part of their rules, that they're being conscious about their use of the system. They're not letting water run. They're taking shorter showers, especially if there's gonna be an overload on the system. I think a lot of people aren't used to having a septic system. They might be coming up to visit from somewhere where they live on a sewer. That's very different. And that knowledge just isn't there. That presence just isn't there. So helping the homeowners push that information out as part of their vacation rental.
And there's publications that you can hang up in your cabin, in your house, if you're renting. And EPA has them on their site, Septic, for rentals.
So John
And
first.
actually, let me, hang on a second. That publication really goes through each thing, and tells, you know, the person renting, you know, here are the things that you need to stick to. We appreciate your help. So you don't have to make anything up. It's nice flat.
So John.
Yeah, we have the same issue on Sunrise Lake, they're not as big as Milton Sweet Ponds, but we have Airbnbs and we have renters that our main concern right now is they don't know how to boat safely. So,
That's anywhere USA.
yes, I think so. So, our committee, is looking into, finding out who the big B&Bs are on the lake. And then educate the owners to put stuff in their booklets. Now, you're gonna run into issues when you talk about Sino, because that's a negative. So we've already had people say, well, I don't wanna put Sino in there because it may come and it may not come, and it may deter somebody from coming to my place. But still, if you do it in a positive way. So that's one of our projects that we're gonna be doing next year, is get a hold of the owners. And, you know, the town can help you, health officer can help you, if you have an active health officer. So that is one of our concerns also.
It's helping people word it in the way that
Yeah.
is positive.
Yeah.
So,
How do you spin cyanobacteria in a positive way?
so it's making notice that it can happen, or it has happened, depending on where you are. It's providing material saying like, we wanna know if this is happening, please let us know. So it's kind of a passive way to share information. So if you have like those bookmarks that I have on the table over there, they have a QR code that brings you to the cyanobacteria reporter. So it's a benefit to the people who are visiting, because you're showing them that you care about their health, because you're saying, use this risk assessment, make sure that you're swimming at to your own benefit, and then giving them information about what cyanobacteria is, and in a place for them to act upon it if they are concerned.
They would be worried if you
let your dog swim and it got sick, and what kind of, if you didn't say anything.
Right, especially, so if you don't say anything, it's almost worse, yep.
And would your code enforcement officer have an occupancy kind of permit, a number of people for a septic? If you have a 3-bedroom septic, that's gonna be from what?
That's based off of the size of your house and
Okay,
the
so,
assumption
but
that you'd be.
If you have a house that's a 3-bedroom house, that's maybe
The septic is designed for that.
8 to 10 people, let's say, and your bed and breakfast shouldn't have any more than that number of people.
So I don't know if there is enforcement ability. I think it's different by town.
Be an ordinance.
And it would right, it would have to be an ordinance. So that's a conversation to have with
That would be a health ordinance, I guess.
the town.
Right, except even as a homeowner, you couldn't have a party.
You can have a party, but not like long-term.
Not for a month long.
Yes. You can have a party, get a porta potty.
Go ahead.
There was a bill in the legislature this year, and it was about making it illegal to, well, it may already be illegal, so enlighten me about your leaf, you know, and grass. Did that bill pass?
Yes.
It is passed, it is signed into law now?
Yes.
And it was, I think it was.
Yeah,
on
so
411
I don't know how the sound is right now, but your question was about the bill that disallows yard waste or fines yard waste in, making its way into the lake. So
Yeah, 'cause
don't
people
put in-
would just, you know, make it right in there, because they thought
Whether
it was
it's
a great
lawn
idea.
clippings or it's
Yeah.
leaves, yep, so that was signed into law.
So it is enforceable.
Yep.
By,
Is it enforceable by your neighbor?
by your neighbor, get pictures. Your code enforcement.
I'd have to look back at the law to know who was enforcing it.
Yeah,
But it is, yes, it is enforceable.
Yes, so you're the
I will take pictures.
Any other questions?
I will get a badge.
Good.
Yeah, actually, does anybody in this room know how to maintain a clover yard? Do I have to mow it in the spring?
And then they go, oh. Ask me.
Yeah, I should ask you.
So you don't need to mow it, I mean, you can aerate it.
Will it be okay? Yeah.
Yeah.
Let it go? Fine. I love it.
A natural lawn,
I love my clover yard.
a natural lawn will maintain itself, I mean, depending on what species you get in there, if it's not just straight clover, maybe it's some sedges, some ryegrass, you will have to mow eventually. But as far as clover goes, you're all set.
It'll be okay.
You can aerate, and that'll help too.
No, it's almost impossible for me to aerate a lawn.
Sure.
I don't know what you.
Walk
I
around
tried
with spiked
I tried
boots.
The things you put on your feet.
Yeah.
No. I've tried the thing you drag behind your tractor, and it just rides along the top, so.
Oh, okay.
That's
Do
nice to
you
know.
guys were working on an app to make, like, is the Lake Smart program on an app for communities yet?
We are still working on that app, so what Jen's asking about is a web app, an online web app for the Lake Smart program. And our effort there was to make this as accessible as possible to people. So not everyone wants us on their property for a property tour. Some people are pretty protective, or they just want to understand what the lake-friendly living program is before having someone come to their property. Or maybe they're not around and they don't want someone on their property without them there. So this web app will allow them to basically have a virtual experience. And we're currently in the process of working on that, and that should be out and ready definitely for next summer. And we also, I mentioned having a Lake Smart community program. So this is a QR code that brings you to the application to be a Lake Smart community. And in that application, there's descriptions of what it means to be a Lake Smart community, what it means to be a Lake Smart ambassador. The ambassador is a local coordinator for that group that helps collect people or bring people together to be that Lake Smart community and have us come out and do property tours.
Is that the same QR code as the bidding booklet, or?
No, that is something different, I believe. Back to the rental question. Renters or owners of the rental properties could also leave the Lake Smart book as part of their materials. It's a pretty thorough booklet of anything lake friendly. Unless there's any other questions.
So, I'm
just want to mention, as part of the watershed management plan that we're working on right now for the ponds, we've got excellent cooperation from both the town and from the Lake Association. And we've got Jen King, who's the president of the association, as well as Richard Kraus here from town. So, I just want you all to know that there's a lot of people that care about this. And where we're at right now is we're almost completed with the draft. FB Environmental is the consultant that's doing it, doing an excellent job. And by the end of the month, we'll have everything wrapped up for this project. And part of that's having this event is part of that, because in order to get additional funding through EPA, through a 319 grant to implement any of the ideas that are found in the report, the final watershed management plan. In order to do that, you've got to follow what they call this criteria, A through I criteria, and each one talks about different steps that you have to do, and this is part of it. So we will have that A through I criteria, which will make us eligible to be able to go for the big bucks for implementation projects. So there's a lot of people that care about the lake, and steps are being taken. And it's good, because if we don't nip things in the bud now, it's only going to be 10 times more difficult as things progress. So we don't like seeing that, that some of the levels are getting in the wrong direction, but the steps that we'll take as part of the watershed management plan will certainly help change that. And I do want to remind folks that it takes all of us. That watershed management plan, when we're done with it, we're not going to be helping you do these implementation things unless there's funding for it. So it takes organization around the lake and around the town to help implement some of these things.
I would throw in that there are some groups that have included the Lake Smart program in their watershed management plans to help guide people in what projects makes the most sense for their property.
And certainly, I think I'll mention that to FB Environmental, make sure they get that in there, because we do appreciate you taking the time. Your presentation was excellent.
Yes. Thank you very much. And
I just want to add, I want to acknowledge Wayne here, who does most of the invasive management for Milton Three Ponds. A lot of you know him, but he does so much for TPPA. And Karen's a new board member, and Ken Peterson has been helping with weed watching. So I just want to, there's a group of us that put in a lot of hours to try and protect the ponds, and we love seeing you here, and we'd love to get people involved. So check out our new website, threeponds.net, has lots of information on it, and reach out anytime. And if you do Facebook, follow us there. So thank you.
The other thing, thank you for that. The other thing I wanted to mention is, I like Bria's idea about taking pictures of your areas. I would also go a little step further to saying, I bet that if you sent those by email to either DES or, I don't know if you guys would.
Sure.
Or us, Southwest Region Planning Commission, we would be able to guide you as far as what we think some solutions are.
Absolutely.
So that you're not left there trying to figure it out yourself. But I also would encourage you to go on to DES's website and look at the Homeowner's Guide to Stormwater Management. That really is a simple thing to follow. Yes.
I know that a lot of the ponds are border ponds. Are you working with a Maine group as well? Like Southern Maine Regional?
They were involved a bit at the beginning. I did reach out to them. I want to make sure that we follow up with them, because I think it's an important connection.
Okay. Do you know if Lee J is still,
It's not who I've spoken to. I can't remember off the top of my head.
Okay.
But you can throw a few more names on
Eric
it.
Sanderson? Who? Eric Sanderson?
Maybe.
I haven't been in touch with them for a while, but I can try to be active.
Okay.
Thank you.
I'm gonna do the mug raffle if you guys, we've only lost one person.
And Richard, thank you for letting us use the space.